The story going into DLC 3 is going to be a fascinating one. So many ideas, characters, and themes have been all leading up to this map that it almost does feel like a DLC 4 or a final map in its season, because it feels like everything we've seen so far has been all for this. Now, obviously, it's a DLC 3 and we're expecting to get 2 more maps after it, so it's not exactly that, but there is so many exciting themes going into this map that we definitely need to talk about. And I think I'll be able to convince you guys to be excited for this story of this upcoming map. And if I do, I'd appreciate if you guys dropped a like and subscribe. And with that said, let's talk about the story of DLC 3. Now, to start this all off, where is DLC 3 even going to be? Well, as we all know from the ending to the tomb, it's actually going to be in this mansion. And this mansion is actually in a very familiar place because it's also quite literally in Liberty Falls. Now, obviously, it's not in the Liberty Falls map that we've already got on launch. Instead, it's the idea of the city of Liberty Falls that expands further than that. And obviously, what expands further is what we actually see in the ending cutscene to the tomb, where it shows on the right the Liberty Falls map we played on, but then to the left, you see the mansion. And what's more fascinating about this mansion is that we've actually already seen inside of this mansion before. In fact, we saw this before we even saw gameplay of Liberty Falls, because we actually got the intro cutscene to Liberty Falls, and in this we actually see Richtofen, Blanchard, and even the S.A.M AI all in this mansion. Now, I don't think there's any major gameplay things we could take from this intro cutscene, but there's a lot of story themes that we could talk about. But I'm getting too far ahead of myself. For now, we have to understand what happened from Terminus, Citadel, and the Tomb that even brings us back to Liberty Falls. Because if we remind ourselves all the way back in Terminus when our crew first escaped, this is when we had our first contact with the S.A.M AI. And by the end of this Easter egg, the S.A.M AI convinces us to go along with her plan to find the Sentinal artifact. Now, the reason that she says we should bring her the Sentinel artifact is because she'll have a way to free Samantha Maxis from the Dark Ether. And if you guys forgot, at the end of the Cold War story with the map Forsaken, in order to beat the Forsaken itself, Samantha had to make the sacrifice of getting trapped in the Dark Ether again in order to defeat the Forsaken. And she's been trapped there ever since, which has been 5 years in the regular world time, but as we've learned during the events of Cold War, that time passes way faster in the Dark Ether, so she's been in there for a very, very long time. But regardless, that is the goals that at least the S.A.M AI told us and our characters are believing. Or at least kind of believing, because if you've listened to the conversational quotes from map to map, you would hear that they start to doubt the S.A.M AI and that it could really free Samantha from the Dark Ether, or what its real goals are. In fact, in the Tomb, this is where you see almost every single character doubting the S.A.M AI, which is quite fascinating to me. And this isn't something new. In fact, people have been questioning the S.A.M AI and if it is a good or truthful, at least, since Terminus itself, me included. And people have had different ideas. Maybe the S.A.M AI is causing the outbreaks, and maybe it has some ulterior motives for the Sentinel artifact. And I mean, there's reasons to believe this. Because if we come back to that intro cutscene to Liberty Falls, we actually see the S.A.M AI. Now, at the time, people thought it was just Samantha Maxis, but all signs point this to being the actual S.A.M AI. Because we do know that Richtofen was the one who created this S.A.M AI, and he had it with him most of the time. And where was Richtofen? Well, he was obviously in the mansion. And this is exactly what we see at the very end of the Liberty Falls cutscene, where the S.A.M AI goes out of control and takes over the orb that holds the essence of the Forsaken. And we know this will give the S.A.M AI a ton of power. We don't know how much, but we do know for a fact that she has the essence of the Forsaken, which is incredibly powerful, because don't forget that the Forsaken is one of the most powerful beings we've seen in zombies, because this Forsaken was able to completely take over the entirety of the Dark Ether. This is a place that had the Dark Ether entities, overlords, and so many other very powerful creatures, but yet the Forsaken was able to defeat all of them and take complete control over the Dark Ether. And now the S.A.M AI has that exact same power. But for some reason, the S.A.M AI wants even more, because as we've already mentioned, she also wants the Sentinal artifact. And the question becomes, why? Why does the S.A.M AI not only need the power of the Forsaken, but also the Sentinel artifact? What more does it really need that power for? And this has been a huge question, because as much as me and many other people have theorized that the S.A.M AI is secretly evil or lying to us at the very least, the question is like, why? What is it lying about? And we haven't been able to answer that because we haven't found a motive so far for the S.A.M AI outside of what it's told us, that it's trying to help us free Samantha Maxis from the Dark Ether. And maybe it's really all that, and it's not evil. But to me, I'm still not entirely sold on that, because why would our characters start to doubt the S.A.M AI more and more as time goes on? I mean, the only hint that we've ever got is this idea of immortality that keeps popping up over and over again. And it's a weird theme to keep popping up, because it seems like none of the other characters would want anything to do with immortality. It's not a motive for Richtofen or our playable characters, so why does it keep popping up? And the only thing I could think of is maybe the S.A.M AI, but why would an artificial intelligence want something to do with immortality? It doesn't seem to make sense. Unless it's trying to help someone else become immortal, which would definitely be a big twist. But regardless, we really don't have anything solid for what the secret motives for the S.A.M AI could possibly be. And that's exciting on its own. But there's much more that I think is very interesting too, because another thing we know about this mansion that we're going to be playing on in our next map is that this is the last time we saw Richtofen. Because keep in mind, in the intro cutscene to Liberty Falls, not only was Richtofen living here and running the secret experiments underground here with the S.A.M AI and also the Forsaken Orb and also whatever Project Janus really is, which, by the way, is supposed to be like the main thing here that has just been completely pushed to the side, which is crazy to me. But regardless, we don't really know what's come of all that, because it seems like that's all got destroyed because of the outbreak that happened at Liberty Falls. And what we saw happen especially to Richtofen, the leader of Project Janus, because here we see him fighting against the zombies, but by the end of it, when he was going there to stop the S.A.M AI, he instead got puffed away. And we still don't know where he is. I mean, some people assume he's in the Dark Ether, maybe even dead or something like that, but we really just don't know. There's a possibility that maybe he's still trapped somewhere on this map, and maybe we'll finally get some answers or at least hints to what really happened to him, because this is a really big thing to just kind of leave off on, because this is like the character in Call of Duty Zombies. You don't get bigger than Edward Richtofen, and last we saw of him, he's just puffed away, and it's just like, what's going on with him? So this is something that I'm very much looking forward to with this map, is at least some hints to what's come of Richtofen. And kind of on that note, maybe some answers to not only his plan in Project Janus, or maybe at least what it was, because we still don't even know what Project Janus is till this day. A bunch of really big questions could potentially be answered or at least hinted at in this map. But it doesn't end there. There's some other themes that I think people have been overlooking here, because keep in mind, Richtofen isn't the only character we saw in the mansion. Another character we saw is actually Blanchard, which is a character that a lot of people like for some reason, but he is pretty much kind of the guy who walks you through Liberty Falls. He walks you through the Easter egg, talks about story stuff, and that's kind of what he's been doing. But we know he's also been in the mansion, at least during the events of Liberty Falls. Maybe he's not there anymore by the time we get there, but I think more than likely he probably will still be there, which is interesting because I don't know what kind of role he could possibly play on this map, because he seems to not know as much as all of us. He seems very confused about everything. He doesn't know what happened to Richtofen, he doesn't know what caused the outbreaks really, he just doesn't know a lot. But one thing he does know for certain has to do with another character that was also in Liberty Falls. And this character was the one during the Liberty Falls Easter egg. And this is Dr. Panos. Now, what we learned through Liberty Falls is that Panos was trapped in a small pocket of the Dark Ether, this of course being in the church. But interestingly enough, while he was in the Dark Ether, he heard voices of someone. You hear this throughout the Easter egg, and even when you just randomly walk by him, you just hear him mumbling to himself like he's talking to someone, but you don't hear that someone else. Now, we don't know for sure who this is. There's definitely theories out there for who Panos has been talking to, but we at least know that whoever this was in the Dark Ether is the one who walked him through how to build the machine that eventually, by the end of the Easter egg, made it able for him to escape the Dark Ether and go back into the real world. And honestly, I think that really throws me off for who Panos has been talking to. Because initially, I thought it's probably Samantha Maxis. She's in the Dark Ether, right? And I mean, it still could be, but well, if Samantha Maxis knows a way how to escape the Dark Ether, why wouldn't she escape herself? I mean, maybe there's some factors there we just don't know about, but it still kind of throws me off. And this is why I start thinking about potential other characters that this could be. And maybe I'll make a video going over all the possibilities in the future, but right now it is very interesting. But regardless of who Panos is talking about, there is some secret plan going on behind the scenes, something separate from the S.A.M AI and separate from Richtofen and Project Janus. Now, there's a chance we won't see Panos in this upcoming map. He might be saved for a potential map after that that's theorized to be Janus Towers. But how this does tie in is actually bringing us back to Blanchard, because Blanchard saw what Panos did. He saw Panos trap the operators from Liberty Falls in the Dark Ether and then escape himself. He saw this all happen. And I think this, more than anything, is going to be Blanchard's role, telling us about Panos and maybe even revealing things that he learned ever since then about him and his goals, and maybe even potentially who Panos was talking to, because that's been a huge mystery since the launch of this game. And with that, those are all the main themes that I think we should keep our eyes on going into DLC 3. And there's honestly a lot, and that's why at the start of the video, I told you guys it feels like it's a climax of the story, because it feels like so many themes they've set up in launch maps, DLC maps, is all coming to a head in this map. But again, keep in mind, maybe just some of them don't. Maybe Richtofen doesn't get involved, maybe Samantha Maxis doesn't get involved, or even Panos. Things like that could easily happen, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Regardless though, this stuff is super exciting, and I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts, theories, and ideas on this story of DLC 3. But regardless though, that's going to wrap it up for me. Thank you guys all so much for watching. I very much do appreciate it, especially got this far in the video, but that's going to wrap it up for me. Thank you guys all so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.